Hello and welcome to Beauty Will Save the World. As you can see, the inspiration for background art today is Leonard Cohen. Is not is far removed actually from the poetry we'll be reading today in terms of time, but not spirit and trade, because Leonard Cohen happened to be a wonderful poet and makes a really good connection between poem and music that they're actually one. There's music in his poetry and there's poetry in his music, and it makes those two wonderfully better than any other modern musician actually that I really know of. And here we have one of his records of a live concert in London. This is actually one of my favorite live albums of all time. You know, maybe tying it up there maybe with Led Zeppelin Celebration Day, or the band's final tour, where the iconic performance of what was this Irish singer's name? Van Morrison. They gave a very wonderful performance in that last tour of the band. So anyway, I'm digressing, but I just want to say Leonard Cohen was at one point a Buddhist, a Zen Buddhist, and a monk actually. Had a robe and shaved his head and everything. And so he must have really steeped deep in that ancient culture. And the poet we will read today, mirrors that sort of life, that he longed for, that hermetic life. Just to go off from the world and meditate and live a quiet and peaceful life. But he couldn't, because his worldly duties always called to him, and he couldn't say no to the rulers who always gave him these offices, and he always had to deal with people and power, while all the while what he really wanted to was to stay off and away. And it's really interesting, to put Leonard Cohen here as a poet as well, because for him, he really wanted also to live that sort of life, but also the world of the world of fame, the world of music, the world of women, kind of was always calling onto him. So he said himself that he failed at being a monk, and he left the monastery and reintegrated again into the world. So I think both of them, by one way or another, couldn't really stick to what they really wanted, maybe by outside compulsions or inside compulsions. And anyway, the poet we're talking about here is Wang Wei. So anyway, I took long to say his name, which leading you on, but a book of luminous things. This is an edition by Czesław Miłosz, who collected these poems together. And this book of luminous things, I mean, it stays true really to the title of the book. It's truly a book of luminous things. And if there's a beginner who wanted to get into poetry, who wanted to get into the beautiful world of poetry, I'd totally recommend this anthology by Czesław Miłosz. It collects poems from all over the world, from different cultures and different languages, into translation, of course. but it gave them so much thought. They're short, they're accessible, they're lyrical, they cover so many topics, they're inviting, they're beautiful, they're just amazing, and very reader friendly for beginners. It's not poetry that seeks to deceive your mind, to trick you, and to hide their meaning or anything. It's just poem that paints the world for you and bears out its feelings without the veil of technicalities. And so one of the entries to this is Wang Wei. I think is one of the most entries made. I think Milosh was very generous with Wang Wei, I think, and Tu Fu. And those are two poets. I think they were contemporaries during the Tang period. That is the 8th century China. I think this is like the golden age for Chinese poetry, to have Wang Wei and Du Fu and Li Po as contemporaries. I mean, it doesn't get better than that, you know. It's just amazing that those people were able to exist in such close proximity of time and put out this amazing volume of works. So I will be reading a few poems by Wang Wei, just trying to show his struggles with the world, and his calling as a poet, and his desire for quiet and peace and contemplation, to really enjoy the beauty of the world and nature that he really loved and preferred to the formal and official posts that he was compelled to take by the government. And of course, like, I've always loved Chinese classical poetry. There's that sort of freshness, sort of immediacy, and such good painting of landscape. And of course, in this case, Wang Wei happens to have been a painter as well. Actually, he was actually famous back then more as a painter than as a poet. But his paintings did not survive through time, but his poems did. And we thank, posterity for that we're able to see this. And you can see him painting with words, so you tend to imagine what his paintings must have looked like. Okay, so let us get into the text. I just love this book. It's just such a beautiful copy. Let us get to the text. They're short poems. I'll be reading them, and maybe short commentaries. Wang Wei he lived from 701 to 761, so that makes him a bit older than Du Fu. So here he shows is in one of the official trips that he does to towns. I think probably was a tax collector or something, I'm not sure, but he had to travel to these distant provinces. And China is still a very big sort of country, and at this time the only mode of transport was the river. And so when you moved, you sort of go to these towns that had totally different cultures, from buildings to the dialect of the languages and how they put on. There wasn't so much, I think, connection and relation as we have it right now with globalization and everything. So you only had to travel like maybe a few miles from where you lived, and it seemed like you're in a totally different world, and like the homogeneous world that we are in right now. Anyway, morning, sailing into Xinyang. As my boat sails into Xingzhe Lake, I am stunned by this glorious city. A canal meanders by the narrow courtyard doors. Fires and cooking smoke crowd the water. In these people, I see strange customs, and the dialect here is obscure. In late autumn, fields are abandoned. Morning light, noise wakes at the city wells. Fish merchants float on the waves, chicken and dogs, villages on either bank. I'm heading away from the white clouds. What will become of my solitary sail? I'm heading away from white clouds. So for Wang Wei, what white clouds signified his poetic world, his desire for tranquility and the quiet life that he really longed for, but he had to head away from it for these official duties, and he wonders what will become of his solitary sail. And in this case, the solitary sail is sort of like his soul, that he's afraid for it, because he's taken on a duty that is so far removed from what he really loves. So again, another one, Wang Wei, a white turtle and a waterfall, is very picturesque as well. And a white turtle and a waterfall, but the title, you can just almost see the picture already. So the waterfall on South Mountain hits the rocks, tosses back its form with terrifying thunder, blotting out even face-to-face talk. Collapsing water and bouncing foam soak blue moss, old moss so thick it drowns the spring grass. Animals are hushed, birds fly but don't sing. Yet a white turtle plays on the pool's sand floor under riotous spray, sliding about with the torrents. The people of the land are benevolent, not angling or net fishing. The white turtle lives out its life naturally. I mean, those last few lines, turtles have been some of the animals that have been declared endangered in the past, but these people were benevolent enough to let them alone, just live out their lives naturally. And I think Wang Wei makes a notice of that and is really, really pleased about that. So you can see the sort of love of nature and the conservative spirit and aim of the natural world. We go next to another of Wang Wei, and this, he tries to I think mirror the sort of world that he found himself most of the time living in, the decadence of it all, the world that he wanted to escape, and it shows the vanity of these characters, and you read it and realize, man, this is like over 1,000 years ago, but it is so much familiar, and you see humans haven't really changed much through time, and the solitary scholar within it all is always still baffled by it, as they are still now. So Wang Wei song about Zixi. Then there's one lady character. Her beauty casts a spell on everyone. How could Zixi stay poor so long? In the morning, she was washing clothes in the Yue River. In the evening, she was a concubine in the palace of Wu. When she was poor, was she out of the ordinary? Now rich, she is rare. Her attendants apply her powder and rouge. Others dress her in silks. The king favors her, and it fans her arrogance. She can do no wrong. Of her old friends who washed silks with her, none share her courage. In her village, her best friend is ugly. It's hopeless to imitate Lady Zixi cunning frowns. translated from Chinese by Tony and Willis Spanstone and Zhu Haizhen. The others as well were the same translations. So I guess I'll have to look for the complete translations of Wang Wei, but this duo, because I think they did a really pretty job with it. Another one in the same line of thought of the people, he's observing the people of his time. Dancing woman, cockfighter husband, and the impoverished sage. The woman from Zhao sings dirty songs and does dances of Handan, while her husband knocks about, puts on cockfights for the king of Qi. With yellow gold he buys songs and laughter from a whore. He never counts his coins. Zhu and Shi, relatives of the emperor, often come to his house. Their high gates are crowded with 4-horse carriages. A scholar lives in their guest house, bragging about his rich patron Zulu. For 30 years, his meals are the books he eagerly consumes, but his waist belt has no money in it. His is the way of scholars, of the sage. All his life, he is poor. And the last poem, Wang Wei, which shows how he's really tired of that world that we just painted, and he wants to retreat to some ideal landscape and just contemplate. Lazy about writing poems. With time, I became lazy about writing poems. Now my only company is old age. In an early life, I was a poet, a mistake. And my former body belonged to a painter. I can't abandon habits of that life, and sometimes I'm recognized by people in this world. My name and the pen name speak my former being, but about all this, my heart is ignorant. A farewell. I dismount from my horse and drink your wine. I ask where you're going. You say you're a failure and want to hibernate at the foot of deep South Mountain. Once you're gone, no one will ask about you. There are endless white clouds on the mountain. Yeah, there's, I think, a scene of a farewell with a friend. And probably those days, if you're not lucky enough to get a formal appointment by the government, most people, or if you lost it, most people must look at you as a failure. And the friend is going to the mountains to hibernate, and it kind of feels like you might probably not see them again, because endless white clouds sort of always signifies the other life, the life beyond, for Du Fu and Wang Wei and other poets of that time, or the mists and the clouds and the high mountains sort of represent the transcendental and the crossover to another world. So you can tell from the poem, he sort of envies the guy, but also feels bad that he might not see him again. So we go to the last poem, where we see him sort of drift to a sort of isolation himself, just get a few moments of reprieve and sort of refuel, and examine himself and try to see if he's really still there or he's totally lost his soul to the world. Drifting on the lake, Autumn is crisp and the firmament far, especially far from where people live. I look at cranes on the sand and am immersed in joy when I see mountains beyond the clouds. Dusk inks the crystal ripples. Leisurely, the white moon comes out. Tonight, I'm with my oar, alone, and can do everything. Yet waver, not willing to return. Wang Wei. The Book of Luminous Things. Collection anthology of poems by Czeslaw Milosz, the Nobel Prize winning poet. And that last poem really sets the mood, and I just want to finish the video on that tone. So like and subscribe. Beauty will save the world.